You're listening to Unfiltered, real talk about sex and love with Ashley
and Heather. And today we're going to be answering questions about orgasm. That's right, we said it. And it should be one of those things that we can talk openly about, but yet there seems to be a lot of shame around this, especially in the Christian community. And so we're just hoping to kind of, bust that door open a little bit and just have a real conversation.
Yes.
So we got a question from a listener. And it says, my question is, how do you know if you're actually having an orgasm? This is a great question. It really is, because I think that there can be confusion around this and what it actually looks like. And I can mostly only just speak about my experience with this. And so that's kind of where I'm going to start with this. I think that sometimes we, meaning this was me, exactly, that we don't have good information from our family of origin when we get married, when we start having sex, when we actually get to know what this is all about. And especially in so many Christian families, they're taught, don't have sex, don't ever have this is bad, this is evil, it will hurt you. But then you get married and magically it's supposed to be the most wonderful thing in the world. And so my comparison then also comes from my first marriage. So having sex in that relationship and then also getting remarried. And then having that sexual experience, which were night and day different. Okay, I can just say that out loud, that they were night and day different, that I know that I probably did achieve orgasm a few times in my first marriage, but sex wasn't ever really even about me. And we didn't ever talk about it. And it was just something that we just did. But a lot of times it was mostly about him. And so then I was like making a list of the chores I needed to do in my head or making my grocery list. And, because I just didn't know that it could be any different. Right.
Yeah.
And so because we don't know what we don't know. And so then when I remarried and got married to Michael, which Michael is very, very sensitive about the fact that he wants to make sure that I enjoy myself and that I achieve orgasm. And so for me, this was like the most amazing experience having sex with him. And so orgasm, from my experience, can feel like, because it's a feeling that you should really have isolated instances of having these feelings. Okay, I'm just going to say it that way. And so this isn't just like commonplace physical experience. It should be something that you are having when you're having sex. And I know that we could talk about all of the 4 phases that you go through from, excitement and all of that to orgasm and then resolution. And so, but I think that sometimes it's easier to just say, for me, when I achieve orgasm, it almost is like this source of energy that starts in the center of my body and just radiates out of all of my limbs in a way that doesn't happen in any other environment. And so it's almost like this energy that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it's spread out throughout your entire body, but it leaves me then just exhausted and satisfied.
and ready to go night-night.
Ready to go night-night. However, there have been times, different for whatever reasons, even if I maybe am more stressed than normal, or where a lot of times then maybe I won't achieve orgasm, or sometimes right in the middle of that build, then I'll hear a noise outside and then it totally distracts me and then nothing happens from there.
Yeah.
So, and then I can also tell you that when I was younger and newly married in my first marriage, that I would hear my girlfriends talk about having multiple orgasms. And I'm thinking, there's no way. That's not even, they're lying. That's not a real thing. Well, in my current marriage, that is definitely a real thing. And sometimes...
way to go, Michael.
Sometimes it's almost as though you have that build, and it starts to radiate out, but it stays there, and it kind of just hovers in this one space. And then the more that you do, then it just kind of ramps up again and again and then it happens again.
Right.
And so I think that it is very true that women can achieve multiple orgasm, but I think also that there may be times when something distracts you, because the woman's brain can be easily distracted, and so I think that sometimes those kind of things can interfere, or stress or anxiety. There's a lot of things, but I want to say in a healthy marriage, in a healthy sexual relationship, that this is kind of what it has looked like for me.
Well, and I know you're going to go into talking more about the brain and body connection, which is so important. And so I guess I was like trying to think, like, how do you explain orgasm to somebody? I was thinking two sensations that I think even come close are, when you have to go to the bathroom really, really, really bad, and then you pee and you're like, like it's this whole body, like, happy
release
place, or like you're in labor and you get that epidural, for those of us who have had, or in any kind of injury pain, and they give you a shot of painkiller, and it like, I even experienced it when I was exhausted young parent, right, Justin, where you're so tired of being on your feet and moving around, and then you lay in bed and it's almost like you can feel honey going through your body. Like it's just this total relaxation coursing through your body that starts in your vagina. And then the other thing I can compare it to, maybe if this person has ever felt aroused, like you've seen something sexual, you've seen something romantic, something has happened. A lot of times it's visual, or maybe you're reading a book and it gets a little romantic and racy and you feel like that kind of warmth in your vagina. That's kind of like where it starts. And then, like you're saying, it builds and builds and builds. And then there's this release that part feels like the drugs going through your body. If you've ever had an epidural during labor and delivery, or like you finally were able to go to the bathroom and your body's like, I'm so happy and relaxed. So yeah, I mean, I feel like you'll know. But also, even with this conversation, we're talking to the people who actively want to pursue orgasm and are in that place to do it. And so even before I read this next question, one, if you've experienced abuse, betrayal, you're in the midst of that, we are not telling you need to work on orgasm. We're talking to the woman that's like, I've done the work. We love each other. I want to figure out how to increase my desire, how to get the most out of this sexual experience. Because for some people, the end goal of sex being pleasure and connection and skin to skin contact, that's going to be enough for them. Others are going to want to say, well, if there's something else I'm missing here in our sex life and I can achieve it, then we're here to help you with that. So my next question is, I don't know that I've ever enjoyed sex. I can orgasm, but I don't know how to wake my body up. Sex was shamed in my Christian home, and then I was supposed to enjoy it after marriage, but for so long, sex was used as a tool when my husband was in his addiction. We were doing so much better relationally after pure desire work, but I don't know how to start liking sex. So this is the person we're talking to. You've done the work, you've worked through your trauma, the emotional intimacy has proceeded, and now your body is just kind of like dull. It's off. And she's asking, how do I wake this up? And I really like this question, because we don't know what we don't know. And so even this question, I actually spoke with this person and they said, it was listening to your guys' Unfiltered episodes that made me realize I could ask you guys this question, because I hear you and Heather talk so comfortably about sex, and you kept saying, send us your questions, send us your questions. So I felt brave enough to send this question and ask, because I thought, well, is there something there's something else I could be getting out of our sex life. Let me try to at least work on this. And so what I ended up talking to about this woman, and I'll share here, is it's going to be a journey. So don't think of it as you're going to get some information and then all of a sudden you're going to know how to wake your body up and enjoy sex. It's probably going to be that second phase. Your spouse went through recovery. You've gone through the betrayal healing. You guys are in a really good place. And now you need to learn how to grow in sexuality and recognize triggers, recognize if some of that shame is coming in from childhood, because we can know big picture that we can have Christian messages that cause shame, or our home life can cause shame, or maybe we had an experience that created shame around sex. We can know that, but until we we really dissect the thoughts and feelings that are around that situation or around that experience, we won't be able to reframe them. And so, so again, if you're engaging in sex, if you know what's going to happen, journal all the things that you're thinking about it during the day. Maybe not even with your own spouse, but if you hear somebody make a comment about sex or see something on TV and you have a thought, journal it and start seeing if there's patterns of thinking around sex that you need to work on. Start paying attention to your body. You know, like if your husband puts his arm on you, do you automatically go to like, oh gosh, he's going to give me a massage because he wants to have sex and I don't want to do that? Like, are you just used to jumping into this negative thing because it takes time, it takes energy, even though you do enjoy it, you know? And so start tracking all of that. And then also, if you know that you're going to be having sex, so maybe starting off by planning days that you have sex and talking openly with your spouse of like, you know, on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays, you know, we're going to have sex, and all day I'm going to be thinking positively about sex. I'm going to be thinking of the things that I'm emotionally attracted to you. Like I'm going to be really like saturating my brain and preparing it that I enjoy you and I want to be close with you physically. And then there's things like, is there a certain, you know, song or outfit or candle that just makes you feel like you are a strong, confident, sexy woman? Because we can have these thoughts all day, like, oh, when he gets home, I'm just going to pause what I'm doing and I'm going to run over and I'm going to look him in his eyes and give him a kiss. And then by the time he gets home, you're like, I need your help with the dishes. Get that kid off the counter. You know, it's just like gone. So maybe even starting with planning it so that you can be like, this is my day. I'm going to try to reframe some of my thinking. And it takes some mental gymnastics to like keep your brain on track. And then to put yourself in that moment of like, I enjoy it. Like I remember having to say to myself, I like sex. I enjoy sex. And so when I'd be thinking, I'm too tired, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too irritated, just reminding myself, like, I actually like this. It's actually a benefit for me. I sleep better. I feel closer. It feels good. And so why am I, you know, dwelling on the negative right now?
Yeah. And sometimes I just wanted to mention too that there are things that can inhibit orgasm. And so if this is, like if you've done the work and you've tried to work on it with your spouse and still there's something maybe physically that you need to go to a doctor, do that. You know, invest in you, because it could be something that is really minor, but that you're not even aware of, that is causing you to not be able to achieve orgasm, you know, in a way that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I can think of a few. Drinking numbs you, like physically will numb you and messes with your blood flow and stuff. And so it can be harder to achieve orgasm when drinking. And so if you're somebody who has always needed a few glasses of wine to like calm yourself down emotionally or maybe close some of those windows in your brain, well, you might be inhibiting your ability to achieve orgasm. Or things like physical things like endometriosis or something that might cause pain. Why would you want to do that? You know, and so yeah, work on work on eliminating things. Like, is it a physical thing? Is there something wrong with my hormones? Do I have endometriosis? Is there sexual trauma there and I need to see a pelvic floor therapist? Or is it something emotional? And then practice, you know, practice different things to be able to help you achieve orgasm. I know Sheila Ray Gregoire was like, why would I want to go to keep going to dinner if I'm only ever going to get 2 chicken wings while he gets a 4-course meal? Then you eventually stop wanting to go to dinner because you never get the full meal. And so practice getting the full meal, you know, once you get there, and that could be just needing to play around and discover like what works for you.
Yeah. So our third question is, how are the brain and orgasm connected? And our brain is connected to everything that we do. Every thought, feeling, sensation, everything really does originate in our brain. But what's interesting, what I have found so interesting, is the way that God designed our brains and sex and orgasm to be something that uniquely binds people together. And I believe that he created that for marriage, and so that you would have a husband and a wife who would be uniquely bound in this physical and chemical and behavioral way. And I think sometimes that we miss the opportunity to even recognize what that looks like if we don't understand the brain and orgasm connection. Because I know I've talked with a lot of women who will either have young kids and they're like, okay, sex is the last thing in the world that I want to do. Women who've gone through menopause and they're kind of like, you know what, I never really enjoyed sex anyway. And now that I don't have any sex drive, then great, I'm just going to take sex off the table forever, which I think that would be really hard on a relationship, And so it just is really recognizing that we kind of buy into the lie that sex is just for men, but it isn't. And because of the chemicals that are created in our brain, specific to orgasm, I think that that's right there is just telling that God's design was that what sex and marriage would be a mutually satisfying experience. And it really does cause us to bond in a way that we don't in any other relationship. And so for men, and I know I've mentioned this before, but for men, they stimulate the production of vasopressin, which really makes them really protective and territorial and want to guard their mate in a way that never happens outside of a sexual relationship. And then for women, we then produce oxytocin, which makes us want to stay put. It makes us want to nest and to feel content in our relationship and content with our partner. And so again, we don't feel that way about anybody else ever. I mean, we can if we're having sex with other people, but it still is something God designed specifically for marriage. And it really does. I mean, orgasm happens in your brain. You know what I mean? And it takes your body to be involved in it too. But it really is something that women need in a relationship just as much as men do. And the other thing that this reminded me of is in our conferences, we would talk to women specifically about this, is that a lot of times either we didn't have enough sexual experience to know what we should be feeling. I know that was my situation in my first marriage, was that I just didn't have good information. But then by the time I got to my second marriage, I knew that women have 7 erogenous zones. I never would have known that before. And so even just being willing to explore and with your husband to say, you know what, I just learned this new information that women have 7 erogenous zones. And I was just wondering if you would, help me explore that and see if it would help to wake up my body, because I think that it's possible, even if you've had this experience over and over and over again, your desire to have better sex is there. Yeah. Right. And that's part of the mental battle. Yeah. And so just being willing to do the work, I think, would be really helpful.
Yeah. The fact that somebody's asking this question and has the willingness to want to change their desire is huge. And so I, commend that, because it's going to take work, and they're saying, I want to experience this, and with you talking about the brain, it reminds me of when John and I were first starting to navigate this, and I was reading all those books, probably all recommended by you, about the brain, and I'm trying to explain it to him, and just me already kind of being ADHD and having so many things, and like you had said, you could start to achieve orgasm and then you get distracted and it's gone. And it's you're a horse with blinders, stay on the hill, keep climbing. But you really do have to keep reining it in. And John would say things like, okay, what windows can I help you close so that I'm just thinking about sex? And I would always sing that song. It's the skeleton song, that old song, the neck bone's connected to the shoulder bone, or I don't know where the neck is connected, not the shoulders. Well, I guess kind of. Anyways, you get to all the bones. And so John and I would even sing that song, okay, the kid bone's connected to the school bone's connected. And I'd work my way down, and then it'd I finally get to the sex bone. It's bedtime bone, then sex bone. And it's okay, all the windows are closed. And now we can start. It's super romantic. But just making light of it and saying I'm distracted, I'm feeling tense. And then also, what does feel good? Maybe it's not the actual sex part yet that feels good, but what helps you relax and feel like you can lay there vulnerable in front of your spouse? What does that for you? Is it talking? Is it kissing? Definitely not kissing for me. Is it a back massage? I'm always I get a free back massage out of this. But what is it that does make you feel good? Is it playing with your hair? Is it, and then do some of that first before engaging in sex, because then it can help relax you and like want to get closer physically, and it might make it a little easier. That was a really fun conversation. And we know that like talking about sex and orgasm is not always fun for everybody who we work with because of betrayal. But it's definitely an important part of the journey once you've navigated through the trauma and the addiction. And we don't want to just stop there and then not talk about these areas where we can experience so much growth and fun and health after all that hard work has been done. So continue to send your questions to us, and we're just really thankful that you joined this conversation today. We value all of your questions, and we fully believe if you can think it, we should be talking about it. Send us your questions to unfiltered@puredesire.org. And if you like this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends, and leave us a review so other people can find us.